Hi everyone, my name is Izzy Burke and I'm currently a senior at Maynard High School. So throughout this entire year of senior project, I've been focusing my research paper, my project on women in sports. And so I created a documentary for women to talk about their experience being a female athlete and what they kind of hope for the future. And I had 11 wonderful girls volunteer to be in this video. And so I hope you guys all enjoy, and thank you so much for watching.
Hi, I'm Megan Silks, and I'm a freshman at Bentley University, where I am a member of the women's soccer team. My athletic journey started when I was around 3 years old. I spent a ton of time at soccer fields because my older sister was a soccer player. And then from that moment on, I just always loved the game. I spent hours on end every week at soccer fields with my sister and my own stuff. And just as I grew up, I started to get super interested in it, and it became something that I really thought I could take to the next level. As every 8 to 10-year-old, I wanted to be an Olympian one day or a professional soccer player. But as I got older, I realized the ultimate goal was to be a collegiate athlete, and that's what I did. And I decided when I was 14 years old that I really wanted to focus in and make it here, because I saw the impact that women's sports had. And it was a huge up and coming field. And then once I saw the impact that I could have on younger girls' lives by just being an athlete and being face of women's sports, that was when I decided this is what I wanted to do. One of the most rewarding experiences I've had as a soccer player was making the NCAA playoffs with my team this past season. So our women's soccer program had been taken over by my coach 2 years ago. And it was basically to do a whole rebuild, and our goal was to make the NCAA championship. At the beginning of the season, we sat down as a team and we're we're going to make the NCAAs this year, which is something they hadn't done since, I think, 2018, and that was the first time they've ever done it. So we were the second team in history to ever make the tournament, and we made the tournament, and we ended up losing in PKs, which was an awful experience, losing in PKs. But for me, I was a freshman and I didn't play on the field throughout the season, but I was a designated PK taker for this game. So I got on the field and I made my PK as a freshman, coming off the bench after 120 minutes. And that was just one of the most rewarding experiences for me, being able to pull through for my team, when I knew I had to.
My name is Eliana Tweedy, and I am a Division I sprinter at Boston University. Coming out of high school, I was a 4-time All-American. I am a 2-time national champion. I've been to nationals 11 times. And I went undefeated for my entire high school career, except for one race. However, I won all states every year from 8th grade all the way up until I finished competing during indoor of my senior year. My most rewarding experience in my athletic career so far was the day that I finally got to commit to the Division I program at Boston University.
My name is Sophia Phillip, and I am a Division I rower at the University of Miami. I started rowing spring of my junior year, and I heard about the sport through a family friend who knew that I was a cross-country skier and that there was a lot of overlap with the two sports, so that I should try rowing. My most rewarding experience so far in my athletic career was setting a school record in the Miami 3v8 this past spring at the Atlantic Coast Conference. It showed me that although I'd only been rowing for 2 years, mind over matter, that I could accomplish anything I set my mind to. It was the best way I could have possibly ended my first collegiate season, but also just such strong motivation for me to push myself even further during that summer and come back even stronger for the next season in the fall.
Hi, I'm Emily Bayranavand, and I did competitive dance for 5 years, and then I did softball for 12 years. Okay, so my most rewarding experience playing sports was my freshman year of high school, and I had asked to compete a solo, and I ended up getting it, and I was able to compete on stage, and I'm pretty sure I got 5th overall for the whole competition. It was awesome. So that was that was really fun.
Hi, I'm Maddie Morgan. I'm a senior at Maynard High School. This year I was a captain for the varsity field hockey team, varsity basketball team, and varsity track team. I've been in sports since I was 2 or 3. I started with dance. I danced for 10 years. I used to do like a lot of sports when I was younger. I did soccer, AAU basketball, softball. My family's really big into sports, so it's always been like a big part of who I am and my identity. And it's kind of just, I've had a lot of accomplishments with it and kind of really just loved it. And yeah. My most rewarding experience in sports was probably my basketball team going to the Final Four this past season. It took a lot of hard work because there was like 3 years where we didn't make it past the first round of playoffs. Even though we were always ranked pretty well. And this year we got to the 3rd power ranking. And we made it to the Final Four, which was like the main goal for our team. Obviously state's like the overall goal. But it was really cool to kind of get to where we wanted to be and finish with a winning record.
Hi, I'm Brenna Bernard. I started playing sports when I was a kid. I played softball for 6 or 7 years, and then I moved on to field hockey, and then I've also done both indoor and outdoor track throughout that time a little bit too. But field hockey has always been my main sport. I've played it throughout all 4 years of high school and 8th grade, and I was league all-star a couple of times and MVP for defense, and I was also a captain my senior year. I would say my most rewarding experience in sports was this past year in field hockey. I scored a goal in one of my games, and that was very rewarding for me because I always have played defense, and so I never really got the chance to play an offensive position, but I got an opportunity during one of our games, and I took it, and I ended up scoring a goal, and that was a really amazing feeling. That was never something I thought I would get to experience, and that was just a really fun opportunity and something that my teammates and I got to celebrate, so it was really exciting.
Hi, I'm Shannon. I'm a senior at Maynard High School, and I play soccer and basketball. My most rewarding experience as an athlete was probably being a captain for basketball and soccer, especially soccer though, because it was so amazing getting to see all my teammates get better throughout the season and watching all the hard work they put in the off season and during the season, and then seeing how it made the team so much better, and it was so great to see firsthand and experience.
My name is Katie Sakowitz. I'm a junior at Maynard High School, and I've played sports my whole life, including basketball, field hockey, and soccer when I was younger. I currently play basketball and field hockey, with my most successful seasons being this year. We were league champs for field hockey, and we made it to the state Final Four in basketball. My personal most valuable moment throughout my sports career was winning the Final Four in basketball and not only receiving that trophy with my team, but going up and hugging my dad after winning that game because he has had such an impact on me, especially with basketball. He instilled a love of basketball in me and my brothers and our entire family throughout our whole life. So finally holding an actual state trophy in my hands and like walking up to my dad and being like, I did it, we're here, like it was such a full circle moment for me, and it just made me feel like this is why it's worth it.
Hi, I'm Haley, and I'm in 10th grade. I'm a gymnast, and next week I'm going to go to Easterns. My most rewarding moment in gymnastics would probably be winning all-around at regionals.
Hi, I'm Finley Conca, and I do gymnastics. This will be my 15th season coming up in the 2025 to 2026 school year. Some stats: I am a regional vault champion, and I am a state champion in beam. My most memorable moments would have to be regionals, my level 7 year. First one, regionals, that's where I won vault and got second place on floor. It was the most memorable for me because it was my first time ever competing for the region and competing for Team Massachusetts, so that was super memorable. And on top of that I won an event and got second on another was just the icing on the cake. The girls were amazing and the experience was amazing.
I'm Carl Bradka, and I do indoor and outdoor track and cross country, and I've been doing it for 5 years. The most memorable moment was when my cross country team qualified for the Massachusetts State Meet for the first time in history, and since then we've come third in divisionals, and hopefully we'll come first this year.
A personal experience that I've had with women's sports being discriminated against or not given as much attention to was in high school with our field. So I went to a really small high school where the athletics weren't paid like that much attention to, but a lot of the time the football team took priority over any of the other teams because they were like the Friday Night Lights team that brought in probably like a decent amount of money for the athletic program. So they got a lot more attention than the other sports did. And there was one weekend where the men's team had a game and it was torrential downpours, thundering and lightning, and they let them play. If we had games like this, they would always cancel them due to like us ruining the fields in the rain. But they didn't cancel the game, and this resulted in this field being completely destroyed. There was there's no grass left on the field, and there was holes everywhere. It was, quite frankly, just dangerous to play on. So we had gone to the school, and we're like, this needs to be fixed. Like, this isn't safe. And their fix was putting sand on the field. And for any of you that know anything about soccer, you can't play soccer on the sand. Like, that's just not safe and not how you play the sport. And we'd reached out to the athletic director, and like a group in the town had gotten together to like try to do something about this. And ultimately the school like tried to do some like Band-Aid fixes over the field, but it just wasn't safe for anyone. And it wasn't just for like women's sports in general, but it did feel as though them letting the game play that night was like neglecting the rest of the sports, and like specifically like the women's soccer game that we had the next day.
I've been playing field hockey since 7th grade, and it's been a very big part of my life and one of the sports that I've worked the hardest towards. I've been very successful in that sport, and it was really hard in our school to kind of get the recognition that we deserved. For a long time, we had like the worst record in the school from my freshman through like junior year. We just did not do as well as we should. But junior year, we got into the playoffs for the first time in a long time. And then my senior year, we were league champs and had an undefeated record for the majority of the season. We only lost one game in our normal season, but we still just never got the right amount of recognition that we deserved. A lot of the time it was from male athletes kind of saying like, it's not a real sport. If I were on the field, I'd be able to be winning. Like, I'd score as many goals as you were, if not more. And kind of just putting us down and not really taking into account how hard we work and how hard like the sport is, and kind of making it sound like a breeze. And like on our senior night, we were obviously crying because it's like a big moment for all the seniors who've been working so hard for so many years. And we were just kind of told like, why are you so emotional? Like, what's going on? We never got the right amount of recognition from like our administration either. We kind of got pushed aside. And just never had the full support that we deserved.
And so one thing that's interesting is that the second our team, the field hockey team, did start doing well, we had people showing up, we had the support that we wanted, and it lasted throughout the majority of the season. But when we really started getting to the point where it was, time for playoffs and where we were actually showing a lot of resilience in the season, that's when I noticed a lot of people or students in our school sort of changing their position. When they saw us doing well, they started saying, oh, I hope you guys lose, or I'm going to show up in the other team's colors. And so it sort of was like we were doing so well, we were doing what people wanted us to do. We were finally sort of leveling with the other sports at our school, but then when we really, finally made it to the finish line, the support was it started dying out, and we had people in our community just wanting to see us fail.
I feel like this is a pretty common experience being a girl playing soccer, but it's a lot of the time when you're playing with boys the same age as you, and the teams get mixed up and you have to scrimmage. Being on the same team as a boy, I feel like girls don't get passed to as much, and it kind of feels like the boys playing against the boys and the girls just being there, and that can be really frustrating, especially when you know that you're on the same level and you don't get to play because you're underestimated by your teammates.
So my sophomore year of high school, I was playing on the junior varsity and the varsity team for softball. And on my junior varsity team, we practically got nothing. We had no equipment, so no catcher's gear. We didn't have any helmets. Our field is terrible because it's in this pit under this hill next to this beautiful track. The foul lines are off. It's just kind of a mess. And anytime it rains, because it's so bad, we have to go play in Marlboro because they have a turf. And so my junior varsity year, I'm on the team. I have to pitch, but we don't have a catcher. And because we don't have a catcher, we have to use the gear that they provide for us. And there was a chest pad, 2 shin pads that were different sizes, and a batting helmet as your catcher's helmet. So I had to talk to my coach and say, hey, I have catcher's gear. Can I bring this in so we have a complete set? And so every day for softball, I'd have to lug my catcher's gear on top of my other batting stuff, so like my bat and my own helmet, gloves, fielding mask, to school pretty much every day. And it kind of sucked, especially compared to, like, let's say our football team, right? Our Neshoba football team, we have like brand new outfits, all new stuff, their field is brand new, and people especially show up to these football games like cheering and, you know, showing spirit. And when it comes to something like softball, like no one's there other than maybe immediate family, and if junior varsity is playing, then the varsity team will show up.
There's certainly a lot of differences being a female track athlete in a male-dominated field. I would say because track and field is such a numbers sport, there's no opinions about, oh, you're good, you're bad. You just look at the times and you go from there. So you meet other athletes as a woman and you tell them, oh, I'm a runner, and they say, oh, I bet I'm faster than you. You're taking away from me. You're taking away from all the other women that have worked so hard to get here. Like, you have these men who range from age 18 to 22 while you're in college who look down on you because they think that they're better than you, but biologically they should be. And I feel like a lot of the time they put women down because they can't accept that, you know, someone else is great at their sport. And I feel like a lot of the time, other athletes need to take a step back and just congratulate each other and acknowledge we're at the same level. We're all Division I. We're all athletes at the same school, and like really try to lift each other up more.
So there have been countless of times where I felt as though that I wasn't being recognized because I wasn't a male athlete, or I was being compared to a male athlete. Just saying that I do gymnastics in general usually stirs up conversation. I remember growing up all the time when I was saying, oh, well, my sport what I do is gymnastics. And the males in my class would say, well, that's not a sport. That's easy. What do you mean that's a sport? And throughout my entire life, I feel like gymnastics has been compared as not being a sport and just being kind of like a hobby, specifically when it comes to talking to males about that sport. I've been compared many times to male athletes saying, well, football's kind of harder, or hockey's harder, or you don't box, so you're not really putting in any effort into your sport, you're just doing whatever.
Gymnastics is such a female-dominated sport. I would say it's often not taken as seriously as some other more male-dominated sports. Like, I get kids at school a lot asking me, like, oh, like, gymnastics isn't really a real sport, like, I could do a flip, like, I can do all these things that you're doing, like, how many hours do you train? And that's when I think a lot of people's minds change, when I tell them that I train like 4 hours, 5 days a week. And that's when they're like, oh, like when I do different sports, like I don't train as much as that. Or like then they're like, oh, well, you're just sitting for most of that practice. Like, how often are you actually flipping? And I get a lot of questions like that. And I think that in more male-dominated sports, when someone tells you that like their practice is 4 hours long, you wouldn't get that question after, like, oh, like you aren't working like that whole time. But
I think that being a female athlete gives me harder expectations in the sense that I believe that female athletes, in order to be recognized, need to do something insanely mind-blowing or earth-shattering or show-stopping just to get recognition. I think too often it feels like women only get recognition for doing something that's never been done before versus exceeding a standard.
So one thing I've definitely noticed is that it seems as though, or it's always felt that when female sports at our school are doing well, we'll have people show up, we'll have the support that we want. But in any other case, you know, during a season where we're not doing as well, that is just not the response that we get. We don't get people showing up at our games. We don't get people asking how the season is going. And I've definitely experienced this myself because, at least to start off in freshman year, I was playing softball and we had a very successful season and we were playing one of our last games and heading for a title, which we got, and we had a lot of kids and students travel to our game to show up and watch us and support us, and that was awesome, and that energy was definitely felt, and it felt really good to see that many people show up for female sports. As I was mentioning before, with field hockey, we really did have a hard time for a few years, and people weren't showing up. I think one thing that's definitely been difficult is that with boys sports in Maynard, whether they're having a good season or not, people are going to show up. And, you know, it's talked about on our local media and, you know, they're shown endless support no matter what. Like, it's kind of inevitable. And with girls sports, that just hasn't been the case.
So one big difference I've seen between men and female sports is the way that our emotional connection with our sport are viewed. When we see a woman crying in a sport, it's usually viewed as, oh, she's weak, she's not tough enough. But we see a male crying after a game, and it's like, oh, he just cares so much. He poured all his blood, sweat, and tears into the game. And I think that's a big barrier that women face in sports. Like, we're viewed a lot of the time as like having too many emotions, or just like crying because we're weak and not tough enough and can't like handle hard. And I just think like it's just like the worst way to be viewed. Like, we are putting the same effort, the same blood, sweat, and tears into our sports as our male counterparts. And just because we're women, it's being viewed as like we're just not tough enough. And like that alone comes from this conversation about like male athletes just being more like tough and strong and like more dedicated to their sports. And I think in the past like few years, this conversation is changing, and we're seeing like amazing figures like Caitlin Clark and like Kelly Lloyd and Abby Wambach and these huge up and coming athletes like paving the way for women's sports. But yet we're still seeing this like interesting gap in the way that male and female sports are viewed just because of like our gender. And I just think that's like the most absurd thing. Like, we are out there performing the same way that they are. So like, why are we not allowed to cry, but they are? It's weird.
In my experience as a female athlete, there have been a lot of times where there are unrealistic expectations regarding appearance, as to where there's like this certain way that girls are supposed to look even when they're on the field competing. And like when a guy's on the field, it's like, oh, he's so athletic, he's so muscular, like whatever. Like, you see his arms, you see his quads, it's like that's a positive. But for a girl, when you're out on the field and like you might be bulkier, you might have that muscle definition, but it's seen as like you're trying to look manly, you're not athletic, you're just bigger, or seen as a negative, when I feel like it should be viewed as a positive. Like, personally, I'm really into working out. I like lifting weights. My brother and I do it pretty much every day after school. And I sometimes find myself thinking, it's like, what am I doing this for? Like, am I doing this so I can look how I'm supposed to look on the field? Like, the pretty, like, thin body that's competing? Or am I doing this to be stronger, to be able to perform better, and to be able to excel? And I find myself reflecting on that a lot because it's such a stereotype that girls in sports are supposed to be thin but not too bulky, have muscle but not be like big. But for me, it's like I've never been tiny. I'm relatively tall. I've always had some kind of muscle mass on my body. And my piece of advice would be think what you're doing it for. Think of your purpose in working out. Think of your purpose in playing sports. And for me, that's to improve the health of my body, to compete and to be strong and not to look a certain way.
So as I said before, like sports has been a really big part of my identity since I was a child. It's been like what I've been raised off of and everything. In my sophomore year, I experienced a big toll in kind of my exercise and what I could do. I got an exercise addiction and I couldn't really exercise anymore. I had to go to an eating disorder treatment, and I wasn't allowed to do any movement for a long time. And it was almost like a part of my identity was taken because I couldn't do sports and I couldn't really do anything, and that kind of impacted me coming back and like motivated me a lot more to keep wanting to do sports and everything, because it like really showed a different lens of how like your body can move and everything, and it's like kind of the benefits of what sports can do to you. It's been a really big push in my recovery and also who I am as a person to make sure that I get my athletic self back. But it was also really scary to come back because you go from being the star athlete that I was, and I got my varsity starting position taken for me in basketball because I wasn't there for a season and I had to miss it, and basketball was always a big part of my life. I played AAU from 6th through 10th grade, and I kind of had a really big push of coming back into women's sports, and it's already so hard to play women's basketball in general too, because compared in high school, everyone goes to the boys' games and not the girls' games, so it's already a hard thing. And then coming back to that after months of not being able to run and play what I love to do, it was kind of scary to kind of have to come back and almost restart because you lose everything you had, you lose all your momentum, your shooting form gets messed up, everything gets messed up, and same with like the other sports too, like I couldn't really run anymore, so it was really scary to come back and kind of show what I could do, because almost like coming back from an injury from like taking so much time off. But it was also so motivating to come back and to be able to play sports again and be able to come back and get 6th in the league for like 400 hurdles, which I just did not think was going to be a thing for me, to be able to come back and be a league all-star in field hockey and be the second highest scorer on our team and continue that for the next few years. And also like in basketball, I ended up being able to start by the end of my junior season again. And it felt so rewarding to come back to being in sports and being able to like play again, after a long time of not really knowing, and also having a whole new side of like the nutrition side of what you can do in sports, because food fuels your sports, and that was also big just help in general. And I feel like that's not talked about always too, is kind of how much like your body needs to be able to like keep playing sports and be able to perform your best. And yet it's kind of like knowing that you can come back from like time off and being able to come back to your old self, but better too, and being able to like pursue what you love still, even through the challenges, and kind of facing the fear of coming back after taking so much time off.
The hardest thing I have been through so far as an athlete was towards the end of my indoor season of my senior year, when I ended up having a full labral tear and it disintegrated within my hip. I was misdiagnosed for a very long time, and I ended up having to get surgery about 2 weeks before moving into college for my freshman year. That took such a toll on my mental health as an athlete, since track is such a large part of my identity. It was really hard coming back, and I think that it is really important for people in the media to take a closer look at the mental health of athletes, especially female athletes in college, as they deal with these new pressures that are being placed on them on top of everything else. You know, when I came to school, I came on crutches, and it was extremely disappointing to meet my new team and to have everyone who saw me for the last time was at my official visit pretty much a year before then, and I was supposed to come in as this scorer during the Patriot League conference, and to this day I'm still working back from that injury, and it's about a year and a half later post-op, and I'm still trying to return. And it's really, really hard, but you know, I have to keep my head up and I have to keep going because I need to prove to myself that I can come back from this. For months, I had to learn how to walk again, and then I had to learn how to lift again, and then I had to learn how to run again. And this is something that I've been doing since I was in 6th grade. I went to the Junior Olympics when I was in 7th grade. I've been to nationals more times than I can count, and all of a sudden, I can't walk anymore. And that took such a toll on me that, you know, I've never had to go through anything like that, and I would not wish that on anyone else. However, I have proven it to myself that I can make it past anything at this point. If I can make it through that, then I can make it through anything. This year, I'm a sophomore, and I was able to compete for the first time in about 22 months since my last competition, and at first I was really disappointed when I looked at the time compared to the times I was running in high school, at nationals, and at all these big meets. But then after I had my little pity party, I took a step back and I looked at myself and I looked at where I've come over the past, 2 years pretty much. And I really am proud of my journey and proud that, I didn't give up, and proud that I was able to move past my injury and keep pursuing my dream of being a great track and field athlete.
In 7th grade, I ended up pulling something in my elbow and wearing out all of the cartilage. So I ended up having surgery. They took cartilage from my knee and put it in my elbow. And overall, it was a 6-month recovery. And that time was definitely mentally challenging, but also physically, getting my body back in shape and keeping my legs strong and my core and things like that. But it was very hard to stay in the sport when I felt so outside. But many of my most rewarding moments have come after that, getting all my skills back. You really have to take it one day at a time, and I feel pushing myself really got me mentally stronger.
So one thing that I think is really important about women's sports and the evolution that we have created in the past 10 or so years of the up and coming sports industry around women's sports is the conversation around women's sports has been slowly changing, but it needs to change more. And not even, it starts at the youngest level of when people talk about girls and boys and say the boys play sports and the girls play with princesses. Or you go, for an example, I was at an after school program a few weeks ago and there was a clinic and they were oh yeah, we know the boys are going to want to come play soccer, but we know, and someone was we know the girls don't want to be here. And I just think that conversation has to change. The way we raise these kids to view women's sports and their own identity within sports is how they're going to view sports down the line. So why are we telling girls that they shouldn't be liking sports, that they can't play them, or that the boys like it more? We need to create this inclusive environment for the kids learning these sports so that when they're older, there's no gap between men's and women's sports. It's just, we're all athletes. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, whatever, we're all playing the same sport. We're all dedicating the same amount of hours and putting in the same amount of work. So why are we creating this gap at such a young age and then trying to close it later in life? It just doesn't really align with what we're trying to do.
Something else that I've struggled with throughout my high school athletics career was letting one mistake in a game or one thing that I screwed up on make me feel like I was unworthy of being on the team or unworthy of my position. I've been a starter in both of my sports since I was a sophomore. And it kind of, especially as an underclassman, it puts this pressure on you to perform. And I wasn't even necessarily getting pressure from my teammates or coaches. It was more a self-inflicted, I need to have a perfect performance every game. I need to do this, this, and this, or else I'm not going to be seen as a good player. And it really can screw up your mindset regarding your performance, but also like your attitude towards the sport. I experienced this more with basketball, specifically in my sophomore season. Like, I wasn't going to start at the beginning of the season. It was all kind of up in the air, and then I ended up starting during the regular season. And it kind of gave me this like mindset of like, I'm here, I've made it here, I can't screw up, I can't let it go now. So every single mistake I would make, like I could miss one layup in a game, have a really good performance the rest of the game, but I would go home and be like, I suck, I'm horrible, like I missed that one layup, I screwed up that one thing, like my teammates are gonna be mad, like my coaches are gonna be mad, everyone saw me miss that one layup. But like when it comes down to it, no one really cares. Like you are your own worst enemy, and it's something that I'm still working on, but one mistake does not define you as an athlete.
Being a woman in sports is definitely different than being a male athlete because when I was younger, me and my teammates, we had a male coach who was pretty abusive, you could say, and just things happen that would never happen if I was a male athlete. Like it's just another worry that female athletes have to have. And I think that like the way that gymnastics is coached and like so harshly coached, I had an old coach who would call some of my teammates and me like fat or overweight at the age of like 8. And that can be like very, very harsh, very extreme. Like obviously none of us were. Like we worked out 5 times a week. Like there's just no need for that. And it's just the expectations that the sport has for how like excellent you need to be can just affect other parts of your life. But you have to just learn that like those things don't define you and like what someone else says about you.
Although I do think significant improvements and change has happened in the past decade, I think the overall portrayal of women in the media is very understated and lacking. I think that female sports are consistently considered irrelevant and deserve definitely more attention as well as engagement online. But I don't think that necessarily stems from a lack of presence on social media, but more that just isn't what society tends to gravitate towards.
So I think that female athletes can be portrayed very positively through the media, but I also think there have been really big instances where the media portrays women in sports very negatively. For instance, in 2020, when Simone Biles withdrew from the Olympic Games because of mental health and because of the twisties, most media outlets came out attacking her, saying that she quit on her nation, that a male athlete would have never withdrew from a competition and he would have fought through the mental struggles, and then other people telling her that she should kill herself, that she's not good enough, things like that. But then I've also seen the media really shine a light on women's sports in a positive way. I follow a lot of NCAA college gymnastics stuff, and it always highlights moments of sportsmanship now and places where women have succeeded and beaten records and stuff like that. So the portrayals in the media can be super negative, but they can also be really positive in just highlighting women athletes doing amazing things. So
over the past couple years, I've been really happy to see some of the changes that have been going on in the media revolving around women's sports. For sure, basketball, women's basketball specifically, has really been on the rise, and I really think that people like Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark have been giving a greater voice to women's sports as a whole, not just basketball. And I really like seeing, even on social media, you see like edits of them, and you see more posts about them, and even men in the comments are commenting, oh, like they're the GOAT, or look at how amazing they are. And it's just really uplifting to finally see, people of athletes, non-athletes, just recognizing that females can be wonderful athletes, just as great as a lot of the men. And I also think that track has been getting really big in the media, with everything going on with the Olympics over the past couple of years and World Athletics. And now we have Grand Slam track, and I think that it's actually bringing a lot more attention to the sport, specifically the women, when we have people like Sydney McLaughlin and Sha'Carri Richardson, and all these amazing sprinters. I'm biased because I am a sprinter, but there are plenty of wonderful female athletes, specifically in the track world as well. And it's just wonderful getting to see the recognition that they're receiving now through, not just the track community, which has been on the rise, but from the world as a whole, as more people get together to watch track.
What keeps me motivated every single day is when I walk into the gym and I see those little faces of the little girls, either first starting gymnastics or little level 3s. They push me to be the best person I can be, just because I want to be a great example for them. When I was growing up, there was a lot of great female gymnasts who were great examples for me, and I kind of want to continue that and make sure that when these little girls look, they can see that hard things are possible to do.
My sport is everything to me. It's the reason I wake up in the morning. It's the reason I go to bed early to wake up for practice. It's how I de-stress and turn my brain off. But mainly I row for my teammates and for my family as well. A lot of my teammates have been rowing for easily 7 or more years. And because I'm just coming up on 2, it's crazy to be around people who have made such immense sacrifices for their sport to become the athletes they are today. And being around teammates who continue to make sacrifices for the team is so inspiring.
My personal drive to be the best. In high school, looking around at Massachusetts, I was the best, but once I got to college, it's a whole new field. Couldn't even walk when I got here, and coming back from injury, that's the one thing that keeps me going. I really just want to get back on top, and I want to prove to myself that I can get to where I was, and I can move past my injury. And I just kind of want to prove to everyone that I am still great.
Improving, getting better, and challenging myself. I feel like a lot of the time people forget that it doesn't matter how good you are compared to other people as long as you're getting better and you're challenging yourself.
I think even though I knew especially softball and dance weren't taken as seriously as many other male sports, I think the love that I had for each of those two sports kept me to continue, kept me pushing through and knowing that I love what I do. I love playing softball, I love dancing, and that for me overtook the fact that I wasn't taken as seriously and wasn't as popular or whatever.
A main thing for me is my family. I think it makes such a difference to have a consistent support system backing you at all times, even if it is something just as simple as high school sports. Both of my parents always make an effort to come to my games. My dad works till pretty late every day, but they always make sure that someone is at my game, home, away, no matter what. During basketball season, my brother and I both play. They split their time, make sure one of them is at my game, one is at his. And then going home and being able to vent to my parents, being able to relate to my brother on basketball points, it really has helped me, at least mentally, stay in it, stay in the game, stay competitive.
Those little girls, the ones that you see every day in the gym, coming with a smiley face, wanting to do more and wanting to learn more, and being a great leader for them.
Outside of my team, my biggest motivation is my younger sister. I always want to be a great role model for her, and set the tone for her for what being a strong and independent woman is.
As long as you're focusing on challenging yourself and getting better, there's always something that you can improve, and improvement is kind of the best feeling that you can get out of a sport.
They're really into it as well. They're not just there, but they are dedicated, they are cheering, they are contributing to the programs, and that has really made a difference for me.
I think some changes that I would like to see, especially in female sports, would maybe be taken more seriously.
To get to a point when there's a professional sports team in Boston, the same way that we have the Red Sox, the Celtics, the Bruins, where are the women's sports teams?
To keep seeing the growth in women's sports being televised and publicized.
Just people showing up for girls' sports and women's sports.
More body representation, showing different body types.
probably NIL deals and how they're mainly like the bigger NIL deals are given to men in college and not the female athletes.
Female athletes are recognized and female sports are recognized to the fullest extent, that they're not compared to male sports at all, because I think that we're talking about two very different things when we talk about female and male sports.
More resources for young girls, especially like about injuries and like nutrition and stuff. There's a lot of just like negative and toxic things about like eating less and like losing your period is normal. I think as someone who's been injured, it'd be great to have more resources for female athletes to turn to when they're injured or like faced with like eating disorders or any like mental health struggles, and also more representation in the media.
So I guess I would just say I hope to see women consistently showing up for each other all across the world and cheering each other on unconditionally.
Probably less comparison, because I feel like a lot of times great women's athletes will get compared with one another and people will try to take down like some one athlete's successes by comparing them to another one.
My dream world would be like there's a sports team that everyone knows about. People wear, like when we have a Boston Sports Day in school, people are wearing the women's sports team's jerseys. Like
You're seeing stadiums sell out and kind of make it a lot bigger of like a thing to kind of have athletes and people just like enjoy watching girls basketball and girls sports in general.
People showing up to those games and endorsing the games, and just even if you can't make it to a game, just putting it out there and showing your sport in any way you can.
Like I'm sure other people have said, just more people coming to girls sports in general without it having to be a push.
Same audience to both female and male sports. And speaking of audience, I really hope that in the future that female sports and athletes get that attendance they deserve.
It's great if we just focus on each individual's success without comparing.
My biggest advice for any younger female athletes or athletes in general getting started is just to give it your all. Don't be embarrassed. Everyone messes up, everyone makes mistakes, everyone starts somewhere. The only way to be great is to try.
Is to not give it up if you love it just because of how good you are.
To maintain as much resilience as possible.
is you need to just believe in yourself when nobody else does. Be your biggest cheerleader and kind of just close out all outside like thoughts and comments and
are afraid of those challenges is to really take them head on. Everyone has been in your place before and it's super scary at first, but being open-minded and acknowledging that you are going to have to go through challenges is really key.
Stay committed and stay driven. The days where you have no motivation are the days where you need to be showing up and giving your 110%.
Losing your period isn't normal, and that you should like ask for help when you need to and eat more, because that actually helps you perform better.
If you love what you're doing and if you have a passion for it, just do it.
Be scared to do anything and kind of like really get into opportunities and not be scared to like go with extra coaching and going out in your own time and doing more.
To value every single game and every single practice that you get to participate in.
And I would say to young girls out there who want to do gymnastics, do any sport, any female sport, like you can do it. Like you can do anything you put your mind to. Like you just walking into that arena, that like stage, that field, like that's one step forward for a woman everywhere.
And sometimes it's embarrassing, sometimes you'll fall, sometimes you'll fail, but every failure just leads to one more success somewhere in the future, and I really hope that you can just become confident enough to keep going and to keep pushing yourself forward.
When you start to feel that pain set in during a hard race or a hard workout, that is when your body is getting fitter, you're getting faster, you're getting stronger.
People who aren't gonna take you seriously, or people who are gonna think your sport's a hobby or it's not as popular, but if you love what you do and you want to continue doing it, like you got it.
But the more you love it and the more you do it, the better you're going to become. So don't be discouraged if you're not the best player on your team, not the fastest girl or the strongest, because with time you're going to get better and you could end up loving it even more if you just stick with it.
Just when other people don't believe in you, that's when you need to believe in yourself the most, and don't ever let stereotypes or general ideas about your abilities define you. And I would try and use that as motivation to prove yourself.
Just like, if you can say you put in everything you got and you failed, at least you can live with the fact that you gave it your everything. Like, you do the extra when nobody's watching. And it's like going out on that extra day and doing the extra run, it slowly builds up. And like at the end of the day, like, you will feel so much better when you know that you've done everything you can do to put yourself in the best position to get there, whether that's as a Division 2, 3, 1 athlete, like wherever you want to be, like you can be there.
It really is about having fun and making friends and making those everlasting memories.
And kind of taking every opportunity you can get, and just like, if people are saying anything to you, like not being scared to like speak up and like be like, no, this is a hard thing to do, and kind of like taking charge in like you and what you want to do, and understanding like you have the power and not be scared to like advocate for yourself in the sports that you're doing.
Every practice is a privilege. Every game is a privilege. Being healthy enough to play sports is a privilege. Being strong enough to play sports is a privilege. Being able to work hard at your sports is a privilege.
And I think that like pushing yourself every day and doing what you love doing and having fun with like the community that you make with your teammates and your friends, and like all my teammates are now all my best friends.
I am relentless.
I am resilient.
I am powerful.
I am strong.
I am capable.
I am worthy.
I am determined.
I am courageous.
I am impossible.
I am determined.
I am